I'm the wife of Edward Linton, the Deputy Minister of the Court of Justice. He's always treated me with the utmost tenderness, like I was everything to him. But when I lay there, beaten and covered in blood, begging him to save me, he didn't even recognize me. Instead, he pulled Lizzie Edwards into his arms, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Where did this crazy woman come from? Throw her out. Be good, Lizzie. Besides my wife, you're the most important person to me. As long as you behave and stay away from her, I swear I'll treat you well for the rest of your life. It hurt. Every bone in my body ached like someone had smashed them apart. I was lying on the cold stone ground, my sight blurred by sweat and blood. Where's this shameless tramp from? She actually ran into Miss Lizzie. She's got a death wish. Everyone knows, apart from his lawful wife, Miss Lizzie is Edward Linton's favorite. Hit her. Mess up that foxy little face. I fought to lift my head, wanting to say who I was. I'm Marcia Campbell, the proper, officially wedded wife they're talking about. Edward treats me like a treasure. If he finds out what they're doing to me, none of them will get away with it. But before I could speak, their fists came again, onto my face, my head. I tried to beg for mercy, but all I coughed up was blood. A sharp, familiar pain tore through my lower belly. Our child. Enough! A cold but familiar voice cut through the chaos, stern and commanding. It was Edward. He was here. I used all my strength to reach a hand toward him. Help me. Please, save our baby. He stepped closer, his boots stopping right in front of my eyes. The cloud pattern sewn on the leather, I stitched that for him myself. He leaned down, and I saw his face clearly. Still the same face I used to dream about, but in those eyes once filled with love for me, there was nothing now but a biting coldness, maybe even some disgust, like I was filth. "Who's this deranged woman?" he asked coolly. He didn't recognize me. I tried to speak, but the pain was too much. Before I could let out a word, another voice, sweet and spoiled, chimed in. "Brother Edward, I wore my new dress just to see you today. Then this crazy woman came up and yanked my hair. She even cursed at me." It was Lizzie Edwards, the musician from Magnolia House, rumored to be Edward's secret darling that he treated like fragile porcelain. I never believed it. We've been married for years. Everyone in the capital knew how good he was to me. Why would he keep a mistress? But he wrapped his arm around her. "Don't be scared, sweetheart. A woman who dares lay a hand on you is digging her own grave. You're the best, Brother Edward. Be good, Lizzie. Other than my wife, you're the most important person to me. As long as you don't stir trouble with her, I'll treat you well for the rest of your life." Hearing that, my whole body went cold. So the rumors were true. He really was keeping a mistress. I instinctively shielded my belly. The pain there was sharp and relentless, like something was draining from me fast. Our child, our baby. My voice cracked, barely more than a whisper, but he was already turning away. Once, when he first found out I was pregnant, he lifted me off the ground with joy. "Marcia, we're having a child. I'll give them everything. They're going to be the happiest kid in the world." "Marcia, I'll treat you well for the rest of my life," he had said, arms wrapped around me tight. He used to say he had no family, that I and the baby were everything he had in this world. But now, Lizzie Edwards yanked my hair back hard, jerking my head up. Her nails, painted blood red, dug so deep into my scalp I felt like they might rip through skin. "Miss Campbell, Edward only has eyes for me." The madre, she leaned in close, her words sharp as knives dipped in poison. She knew exactly who I was. Those first 3 months of pregnancy, we hadn't laid together. Just last night, after the physician confirmed the baby was stable, Edward had pulled me into his arms with such hunger. "Marcia, you don't need to move. I'll take care of you." "Marcia, I missed you so bad." He'd whispered sweet nothings, kissed every inch of me like I was precious. This morning he left in a hurry and forgot his token, so I brought it to him myself, along with some almond pastries I'd made. But halfway there, my carriage was ambushed. After Lizzie abducted me, the first thing she did was have her people shred my clothes, slash my face, then drag me here. Now, I was in so much pain I could barely stay conscious. Through the haze, I thought I saw a pair of familiar boots, the ones I'd stitched myself. I reached out, but he kicked me instead. Ah! I felt the sickening crack of bones snapping. The pain was so deep, my senses started to shut down. Everything blurred. All I could hear were Lizzie's shrill laughter and the cold curses from the servants. Kill her. She's useless trash. Filth like her should be fed to the dogs. Then came Edward's voice, cold as ice. Get her out of here. Don't let her die here. Don't scare Lizzie. And then he walked away. Not a pause. Not even a glance back. The Bardsey. Heh. Only now did I finally see Edward Linton for who he really was. Just as I thought I'd die in this disgusting, freezing corner of the world, two figures burst in. It was Grace Kinsey and Mr. Henderson. Miss, my lady. They rushed over, trembling as they helped me sit up. One look at my bloodied body and their eyes filled with tears. Hurry! We need a doctor now. Mr. Henderson lifted me gently. Grace followed closely, dabbing at the blood on my face with trembling hands, sobbing uncontrollably. Please hang on, miss. Don't give up now. Mr. Henderson carried me on his back, walking through the familiar streets. Edward and I had wandered this road together more times than I could count. He used to buy me candied hawthorns from the corner vendor, stayed with me while I stared at the lanterns by the river. Until today, I always thought I was the luckiest woman alive. My father, the former master of the Divine Healer's Valley, had spoiled me since I was a child. I met Edward the year I came of age. It was my first time leaving the valley. Though badly injured and unconscious, the moment I saw his face, I couldn't look away. After we married, he treated me like treasure. Even a tiny needle prick on my finger made him worry endlessly. I became his wife at 17. Because the doctor said pregnancy then would harm my health, he went around claiming he was impotent. That rumor stuck with him until I turned 20, when it was finally safe for me to bear children. For my 18th birthday, he lit up half the capital with fireworks, just for me. I thought we'd grow old together. What a joke that turned out to be. Suddenly, noise erupted ahead. Mr. Henderson stopped, as if trying to avoid something. I forced my eyes open and saw a crowd gathered at the entrance of a fancy clothing shop not far off. The sign read, Jin Shu Pavilion, in bold characters, the most renowned fabric and dress boutique in the capital. And standing inside were two all too familiar figures, Edward Linton and Lizzie Edwards. Lizzie wore a bright red gown, her face glowing with joy. Edward, do I look good in this? She asked, voice syrupy sweet. She did look good. That red gown made her look just like a bride. Mr. Henderson carried me into a familiar clinic in the capital, rushing in like his life depended on it. The old doctor turned pale the moment he saw me, his hands shaking uncontrollably. Quick, put her down now. Grace sobbed, her voice cracking. Doctor, please save my lady. They laid me on a bed in the inner room. The cold medicine stung as it touched my wounds, every drop making me twitch in pain. The doctor took my pulse, his frown deepening the longer he held my wrist. Her life can still be saved, but the child, I'm afraid we can't keep it. I felt like all the air had been knocked out of me. My baby was gone. The doctor let out a sigh. I'll prepare a decoction to keep her alive, but she's lost a lot of blood. She urgently needs blood conjure herb to stabilize her body. It's incredibly rare. Name your price, Mr. Henderson said immediately. Whatever it takes, just please find it. I'll check the storeroom. Hopefully, we've got a bit left. Just as the doctor stepped out, heavy footsteps echoed from outside. The clinic door slammed open. A troop of guards stormed in. Leading them was none other than Edward Linton. Behind him leaned a pale Lizzie Edwards, wobbling in his arms. She whimpered, Brother Edward, my head's spinning. Everything hurts. Edward's icy eyes scanned the room, landing on the ornate box the doctor had just brought out. Inside was a faintly glowing herb, the blood conjure herb. I'm taking this, Edward said flatly, leaving no room for argument. The old doctor panicked. Lord Edward, that herb is for the lady inside. She's critical. Mind your place, barked one of Edward's guards. Miss Lizzie is no ordinary woman. She needs it more. Lizzie's voice was barely a whisper. Brother Edward, I'll be fine. If someone else needs it, they should have it. But Edward just held her tighter, gently saying, You come first. He threw a glance at his guard, who immediately grabbed the box. The doctor and Mr. Henderson tried to stop him, but they were held down by soldiers before they even got close. I tried to lift myself, but couldn't even move a finger. I could only watch helplessly, as the only thing that could save me was handed right to Lizzie. She just got a scratch. Edward Linton. I pushed out his name with the last of my strength, pulling a jade pendant from my sleeve. He had given it to me when I came of age, a symbol of our promise, both our names carved neatly into it. But he didn't even spare it a glance. His mind was full of Lizzie Edwards and nothing else. He left, took Lizzie, and took the only medicine that could have saved me. The clinic fell into silence. The old doctor's hands were shaking badly as he tried to stabilize me with acupuncture. But I'd lost too much blood, and without the blood-binding herb, everything started fading. I really thought I'd die here. Then the door slammed open again. Edward was back. This time he looked crazed, frantic. "Help Lizzie." She passed out as soon as we stepped outside. The doctor rushed over, his face darkening as he checked her pulse. "She's been poisoned, badly. Needs heart blood to draw the poison out." Then he turned toward me, his expression hardening. You poisoned her, didn't you? Crazy witch. Who do you think you are, daring to harm someone I care about?" "Guards, take her heart's blood." The doctor froze in horror. "My lord, no. If you do that, she'll die for sure." "So what if she does? She's mad, wicked. Better off dead." Edward's face twisted in rage. The guards were already unsheathing their blades, walking toward me. The cold steel caught the light, reflecting my hopeless expression. Grace Kinsey and Mr. Henderson threw themselves in front of me, only to get kicked aside like they were nothing. I could feel death creeping up on me. It was that close. I shut my eyes, bracing for the pain that would end it all. "Touch her, and you die." Suddenly, black figures burst into the room fast as lightning. There were dull thuds. Every one of Edward's guards hit the ground. The man leading them dropped to one knee beside my bed, voice trembling with respect. "Forgive me, mistress. I was too late." "Jonathan, you're here," I choked, tears spilling down my cheeks. Edward went pale in an instant. "Mistress? Marcia? She's the Marcia?" He stared at the broken, bloodied woman on the bed, his bride-to-be, utterly speechless. That crazy woman he just called dirty, the one he wanted to draw blood from. "Marcia! Marcia!" His voice trembled, sobs choking his throat. Edward Linton reached out to touch her, but that icy stare of hers stopped him cold. That's when he finally got a good look at her face. The face he once thought was stunning, couldn't get enough of, was now marked with deep cuts, raw and bloody. It was hardly recognizable. "Your face! Who did this? Tell me, who hurt you like this?" His heart felt like it was being torn apart, his eyes bloodshot. I just looked at him and tried to smile, but the pull of the wounds made it sear in pain. My voice was raspy, barely a whisper. "You might want to ask your sweet Lizzie about that." Edward froze, as if someone had smashed a rock into his chest. Lizzie Edwards? She did this? The same Lizzie who acted all soft and helpless, who couldn't even squash a bug? He whipped his head around, eyes darting to the door. There she was, awake and standing there staring at the mess inside the room, fear written all over her face. And when her gaze met his, she panicked. Edward didn't need anyone to explain now. "Marcia, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." He slumped by the bed, sobbing uncontrollably. "I messed up. I was a fool. I should have never." I stared at him, unmoved. What's the point of saying all this now? "Edward Linton, let's end this. End it." He jerked his head up, eyes wide, veins popping in disbelief. "Marcia, what did you just say?" I tugged at the corner of my mouth again, the sting unbearable. "I said, let's call it off." "No, I won't let you." Edward roared, like a wounded beast trapped in a cage. "Marcia, I know I was wrong. I swear I do. Please, just give me another chance." "A chance?" I let out a hoarse laugh. "Edward Linton, what makes you think you even deserve one? Why don't you ask my child if they forgive you?" I screamed, tears bursting from my eyes. "You really thought Lizzie didn't know a thing?" Edward froze. "She's known all along exactly who I am. She knew I was your wife and that I was carrying your child. She played the pitiful little victim in front of you, but behind my back, she was pure poison. She slashed up my face. She killed my baby. She knew, every bit of it. Whatever color was in his face drained away." His lips trembled as he turned to the shivering figure by the door. "Lizzie Edwards, you vicious witch." Edward suddenly lunged, eyes blazing, storming over to her like a man possessed. He grabbed her hair and slammed her down without a second thought. With a loud thud, Lizzie let out a wail of pain. "Edward, I—" "Shut up!" Edward roared, kicking her hard. This is all you, you evil thing. You ruined Marcia's life. You killed our child. He kicked again and again, losing all control. I'll rip you apart. Lizzie curled on the floor, sobbing and begging for mercy, unable to lift a finger in defense. Please, Edward, don't. It was a mistake. All that fake sweetness and charm, gone. Nothing but ugliness now. The guards wanted to intervene, but the cold glares from the black-clothed men nearby made them think twice. The old physician and Mr. Henderson stood frozen in horror. I lay quietly on the bed, watching it all with a cold detachment. Revenge? No. All he cared about was that a woman made a fool out of him, bruised his pride, exposed his foolishness, his rage. That was all for him. What did that have to do with me anymore? My attendants carefully carried me back to the Valley of Divine Medicine in a soft sedan chair. Father was so furious he almost drew his sword to kill Edward Linton on the spot. There was fire in his bloodshot eyes, burning with rage and pain. Father, don't. I grabbed his arm. This is my battle. I want to deal with it myself. He let the sword fall to the ground helplessly, then pulled me into his arms and cried. He didn't cry often in his life, but today his tears wouldn't stop. He whispered, even if it costs me my life, I swear I'll make you well again. I leaned into him and cried in silence. The scar on my face had slowly started to heal over the last month under a regimen of rare herbs, but the disfigurement it left behind was still there, ugly and jarring. Then one day, our spies in the capital brought back news. Turns out Edward Linton had beaten Lizzie Edwards half to death that day, but didn't kill her. He had her kept in a separate residence, and worse, he even sneaked over to see her a few times. And the most infuriating part? Somehow, Lizzie managed to get a message delivered to me. A note with just a few horrible words. What a shame! Your beloved Edward still only has eyes for me. He spends every night with me. I'll be carrying his child soon, I'm sure. Attached to it, a scrap of fabric, the very baby cloth I had stitched myself. I went ice cold, like the blood in my veins had frozen solid. Fine. Very well, then. I had Lizzie Edwards invited to the Valley's underground prison. Damp, dark, stinking of rust and old blood. She was tied to the torture rack. When she saw me, there was a flicker of smugness in her eyes, right before panic took over. Marcia Campbell, what are you trying to do? Edward won't forgive you for this. I didn't answer. I took a water-soaked leather whip from a servant. Barbs lined the end of it, sharp and cruel. Pulling on a pair of leather gloves, I stepped closer, slow and steady. When you slashed my face back then, did you ever think this day would come? When you murdered my child, did you ever consider that karma might strike back? I raised the whip and brought it down. Crack! Her skin split under the first hit. Ah! She screamed like a wounded beast. Again and again. Every strike carried the weight of my grief. Every swing was laced with my hatred for the child I lost, for the face I no longer recognized. I wanted her to feel it all, 100-fold. Blood soaked her clothes, and she hung like a rag doll, barely alive. I dropped the whip to the floor. Let her live. I gave a cold command to the guard beside me, my tone as icy as frost. This wasn't over. She didn't get to just die and be done with it. A few days later, I held a quiet ceremony for my unborn child. It was in the back hills of the Medical Valley, silent and undisturbed. There was no nameplate, only a small mound of dirt. I laid out the tiny clothes, shoes, little toys I'd once prepared with such hope, one by one, and placed them all into the fire bowl. It's my fault. I didn't protect you. The flames leapt up, swallowing those small things, and what little hope I had left. The wind stirred, scattering ashes and paper offerings into the air. Just then, a disheveled figure stumbled into view. Edward Linton. He looked worn down, thinner, exhausted, bloodshot eyes, stubble on his chin, reeking of wine. He stared at the ashes in the fire, then looked at my calm face, and dropped to his knees with a thud. Marcia, I'm sorry, I messed up. I failed you. I failed our baby. Same old lines. I looked at him, feeling nothing but irony in my heart. Edward Linton, save the performance. He lifted his head quickly, eyes pleading. Marcia, I know I was wrong. Just let Lizzie Edwards go. She's already paid for it. Let Lizzie go? I almost laughed. What a joke. Come again? She doesn't deserve to die, and she's pregnant. Please, I'm begging you. The child's innocent, he added. Innocent? So her child is innocent, but mine deserved what happened. I screamed at him. He was still pleading for the woman who helped kill our baby. I felt my heart go ice cold. He looked at me, and suddenly his voice rose. Marcia Campbell, do you even have a heart? All these years, have I not treated you well? Aren't you even a little grateful? You've always looked down on me, haven't you? And that child, was it even mine? You really think I don't know the truth? He shouted it, loud and raw. The air went still. I stared at him in disbelief. That last tiny thread of emotion, that final shred of respect for our lost child, he shredded it himself. Smack! I slapped him with everything I had. Edward Linton clutched his face, stunned from the slap. Shock in his eyes slowly twisted into hurt, then rage. You hit me? You hit me? He stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Marcia Campbell, you actually hit me? I know it. There's someone else in your heart. That bodyguard always trailing behind you, isn't he your senior, Jonathan Brooks? He's had feelings for you this whole time. Don't think I didn't notice. He jabbed a finger at me, his voice shrill. You two've been sneaking around behind my back, haven't you? That's why you're so eager to get rid of me. I looked at him, this pitiful man, spewing accusations, and felt only how ridiculous it all was. All that heartbreak and despair of the past few days curled into a quiet, bitter laugh. I couldn't help it. I really did laugh. Laughed at how pathetic he was. Laughed at how clueless, and mostly laughed at myself for ever believing him. Edward Linton, you're beyond saving. Just then, a commanding voice rang out. Enough! My father. When did he get here? He stood tall on the slope, several elders behind him, his face like thunder. The guards by my daughter's side? I put them there myself. She didn't even know one of them was her senior. You disgusting brat. Can't control your own desires and have the nerve to question Marcia's honor? Jonathan was gone for barely half a day, and she ends up like this because of your scheming. He walked over to me, gently checking my swollen knuckles, eyes full of pain. Then he turned, his eyes narrowed into icy blades. Edward Linton, what else have you got to say now? Without a word, I pulled the divorce papers from my sleeve and let them drop before him. The paper fluttered down, landing right at his knees. Sign it. My voice was calm, but there was no room for refusal. Edward looked down at the document, then at my father's cold, unyielding face. Panic flickered in his eyes. He lurched forward again, trying to grab the hem of my dress. Marcia, I was wrong. Just give me one more chance. Don't touch me. I stepped back, out of his reach. Another chance? I let out a cold laugh. Was that what you wanted when you stood up for Lizzie Edwards? Or when you questioned whose child it was? When you doubted my purity? He opened his mouth, probably to plead again. But I didn't give him the chance. I flicked a stack of letters from my sleeve. Take a look. This is what your so-called remorse looks like. The letters spread across the ground, covered in his handwriting, those nauseating endearments and plans. Plans to bring me down. Just seeing them again made my eyes sting. When you were down on your knees, begging for forgiveness, your right-hand man was already sneaking messages to Lizzie Edwards, plotting how to get you out of this mess and keep me in the dark. Edward Linton, you're really something. Edward's face turned ghostly pale the moment he saw the letters. He shook so hard he could barely stand. No, Marcia, listen to me. I can explain. That's enough, my father snapped, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. Edward Linton, sign this divorce paper. From now on, you have nothing to do with Miracle Valley. If you're still not getting it, my father said, eyes cold as ice, don't blame Miracle Valley if the Lintons end up having nowhere to stand in the capital. Edward collapsed, completely defeated. He knew. My father wasn't bluffing. Miracle Valley's influence went far beyond curing illnesses. Hands trembling, Edward picked up the divorce paper and the brush from the ground. I got the agreement, and like I promised, let him keep his precious sweetheart. A month later, the scar on my face had faded into a faint pink line, barely visible unless you looked closely. I glanced at myself in the mirror, gave a lopsided smile, and said, Father, I want to go back to the Linton estate. Father paused mid-bite, chopstick still in hand, and frowned deeply. Nonsense. Still thinking about that worthless man? These past weeks, I've focused on you and the family. But that doesn't mean I'm letting the Linton family off the hook. His tone was stern, full of anger and worry all at once. "What are you thinking, Father?" I calmly picked up some greens, eating slowly. "I only want to get what's mine. When I married into that house, you gave me 120 carts of dowry, gold, jewelry, antiques, paintings, and even rare herbs. Now that we're officially divorced and Edward's out of the picture, it's only right I take back what's mine. With that woman Lizzie probably running the show, I wouldn't be surprised if that place is a mess. I've got treasures in there, and no way am I leaving them to her." Father's face softened at my words, though he was still frowning a bit. "If you're set on going, I won't stop you. I'll get some guards to go with you. No need to make a scene." I set down my chopsticks. "A few people will do, just need them to help carry things." After a brief pause, I added, "Also, please don't let Brother Jonathan come with me this time." Father gave me a look, eyes sharp. "Not, Jonathan is a good man, skilled in martial arts, trustworthy." I met his gaze calmly and said, "But I don't have those kinds of feelings for him. If there's no spark, better not to lead him on." "I see." Father sighed, a trace of disappointment flashing in his eyes. "All right then, do as you see fit." The carriage pulled to a stop right in front of the Linton residence. Just as I was about to get out, a shrill scream and curse echoed from inside the house. "Edward Linton, you hit me. You actually hit me because of that woman." It was Lizzie Edwards, her voice sharp and full of hate. Then followed a man's furious yelling, the slap of skin against skin, and a woman crying and begging. "Edward, I was wrong. I really was. Please, just let it go. I beg you, for the child's sake." I stood quietly by the carriage, listening to the chaos inside, my face unreadable. What a sorry little drama. Nothing but dogs biting each other. After a while, things quieted down. Maybe he got tired of hitting her. I stepped forward and crossed the threshold. The courtyard was a mess, shattered porcelain strewn about, a toppled flower rack. Lizzie was collapsed on the ground, hair wild, cheeks swollen and bruised, blood at the corner of her mouth. The charm she once had was long gone, now she just looked a wreck. Edward stood before her, his clothes disheveled, chest rising and falling sharply. He was clearly furious. Then he spotted me, and his eyes lit up like he'd seen hope. "Marcia, you're here!" He rushed over. A pathetic grin slapped across his face, eagerly pointing at the crumpled Lizzie. "Look, Marcia, I taught that wicked woman a lesson. It's all her. She ruined everything between us. She's the one who turned us against each other. I beat her up just now for you, to make it up to you." He tried to come closer, desperation clear in his eyes. "Marcia, I know I was wrong. Can we just try again?" I stared at him, this man who thought hitting another woman could earn him points with me. He couldn't wait to wash his hands of her and act like a hero. It made me sick. I stepped back, dodging his outstretched hand. "Edward Linton." My voice was soft but sharp as ice. "You look like a dog that just ate filth and can't wait to lick its face clean." But sadly, I watched his face freeze up and gave him a cold smile. "You're still filthy." His whole body stiffened, his face flushing and paling by turns. I didn't bother to spare him another glance. I turned around and walked away. Behind me, I could just make out Lizzie mumbling curses and Edward screaming in frustration. None of that mattered to me anymore. The servants who came with me were already waiting outside. When they saw me, they hurried over. "Miss, everything's been moved." "Good." By the time I got back to the Campbell estate, the sun was starting to set. Golden light filtered through the window. I sat by it, turning a smooth jade pendant in my hand. Silently, my trusted guard appeared behind me. "Miss, this is from the master." He handed over a thick stack of documents. I paused. How had Father known I was digging into this? While I was recovering, I'd secretly ordered some investigations into Edward. A man this ruthless, with no sense of decency, was bound to have skeletons. Edward Linton exploited the canal system, embezzled public funds, traded illegal salt, worked with river pirates. Every count backed by solid evidence. I took the files, my fingertips brushing the pages filled with dense writing. My informants are scattered all over the capital. Edward Linton probably thought I, Marcia Campbell, was just another sheltered lady who knew nothing beyond petty jealousy. He never considered that my father, not only the master of the Divine Healer Valley, but formerly a general with command over troops, raised me to be anything but soft. I grew up around tactics and strategy, and being the valley's heir, I was never meant to be anyone's pawn. I was short of one last piece of evidence. The dossier father sent me had exactly what I needed. My fingers brushed lightly across my stomach. There used to be life here once. My poor baby. Mother and grandfather have avenged you. The next morning, I sent the compiled evidence anonymously to the magistrate's office. All the dirty dealings, hidden silver, the secret letters, everything. I even included a map showing where Linton stashed the stolen money. The case was assigned to Lord Wang, known for being rigidly fair and, conveniently, an old friend of my father's. When he saw the evidence, layered, thorough, impossible to deny, his expression grew grim. He didn't need to know who I was. He just needed to understand that everything I had sent him was real. My people had been placed across all of Linton's supposed hidden spots. Some were bribed servants, others strategically inserted by me. What Edward believed to be a flawless plan looked, from my view, like a basket riddled with holes. 3 days later, the news came. The magistrate's office and imperial guards raided Edward's secret houses and the Linton estate. They caught everything and everyone. Mountains of stolen goods and wealth were seized. No room for excuses. The ruling came down fast. Edward Linton. Bribery, abuse of power, murder. Multiple charges. Sentenced to execution after autumn. Lizzie Edwards, a known accomplice. Caught up in it all. Exiled 3,000 miles from the capital. Never allowed back. On execution day, they said Edward lost it, screaming in the prison cart, going between cursing Lizzie and begging for mercy. I'm sorry, it's my fault, I was wrong. The day Edward was taken to the execution ground, the sky was unusually clear. I heard bits and pieces from the servants. I didn't feel much, saw that coming. I told Father I wanted to get out of the city for a while. He muttered, "Don't think you can just run away. The valley needs you back eventually." 2 days later, I finally set off. I made one last trip to the Linton residence. The front gates of the old estate were sealed. The place had gone quiet, like a haunted house. The Marcia Campbell who once lived here, she died a long time ago. The person standing here now just wants a chance to start fresh. My baby was buried here, so was my naivete, my affections. That chapter is closed. For the first time in a long while, my chest felt light, like someone had lifted a giant weight off it. The breeze came through, and I breathed easier. A few steps in, I stopped and took a long breath. The capital's air suddenly didn't feel so heavy anymore. The afternoon sun hit just right, warm and gentle, almost nice. Where to next? Jiangnan? Somewhere up north? Find a quiet little town with mountains and lakes. Maybe open a tea shop, or just plant some flowers, raise a garden. Anything works. This world is huge. Somewhere in it, there's a place for me. I picked up my bag and kept walking. I knew Jonathan Brooks was still quietly behind me, but I had no reason to look back, not even for love.